all here. So welcome everyone to today's IAPC&M CPD Building Masterclass. My name is Julie Kennedy. As I've said, I'm based in the Netherlands and I'm your host for today. And on the hot seat, we have the wonderful Mary Cravets. And I, for one, am very eager to learn from Mary, as she is an award-winning client generation expert. And also, I love to read that you help everyone you can. And that goes from really the top-ranking CFOs to rookie coaches just setting out and needing to generate more clients. And Mary, I did have a laugh when I read, we always ask for a little snippet of interesting thing to liven it up a bit, that you're a huge fan of roller coasters and are absolutely obsessed with otters. I thought that is such an eclectic, it sets the scene. It sets the scene. So we're absolutely delighted to have you here. First, a little bit of housekeeping. So our call is a maximum of 1 hour, including 15 minutes Q&A. The session is recorded, so please mute yourself, but do keep your video on if you can, just to make it that much more lively for everyone, in particular for the speaker. Please use the chat box for any questions and suggestions, and Mary will choose when is the right time for her to take the questions. So welcome, Mary, all the way from California. Topic today is magnetize your messaging. So how to explain what you do to attract new clients faster. And I think a lot of us could do with that. So let's focus, sit up straight, grab your pens and your CPD pads, and over to you, Mary.
Thank you very much, Julie. Welcome, everyone. And thank you so much for being on camera. It does help, especially when I get to the interactive parts, which I do sprinkle throughout. So I'm going to jump in so we have plenty of time to dive deep into this topic. So here's where I'm going to start. I'd like you to imagine you've just sat down at a networking event and someone asks you, so Sophie, what do you do? And so it may be that your mind goes to, oh my gosh, don't be pushy, or don't look desperate. Did someone say coaching? Oh no, don't blow it. Don't say too much. Don't leave out any details. Or maybe your brain just freezes. If you can relate to one of those things, would you please raise your hand and let me know that you are like me? Okay, great. Yes, and it can be very, very frustrating because I know you're accomplished, you're smart, your heart is in the right place. So what I have for you today is structure that will help you better express the value of your gifts and your brilliance so you can get more clients, earn more money, and make a bigger impact with less effort. So your topic today is magnetize your messaging, how to explain coaching to attract new clients faster. Now, we're focusing on messaging and explaining coaching, and it's important to understand that I want you to know the purpose behind what we're doing today. We're not just looking to find cute or clever words, pretty words, but rather messaging is a part of a bigger puzzle of client generation. It's an important piece, but I'm also going to equip you with that bigger picture perspective so the application of this actually leads to client generation. It's the perfect content for you if you are a newer coach and you want to get clients more consistently, or if you are a more experienced business owner and you're looking for insights on how to really clarify your messaging to help streamline your client generation. All right, so here is exactly what we are going to cover today. Number one, I'm going to go over something very simple but important: when and how to explain what you do. Number two, you're going to create your magnetic 30-second introduction so people quickly say, I need you. And then this bigger picture of client generation, the 6 essential elements of an effective client generation plan that makes it easier to attract clients, grow your income, and make a bigger impact in the world. I'm going to highly recommend you do your homework in class. I'm going to give you opportunities to work through this, ask questions. The more you do here, the less is on your to-do list later. Regarding questions, I'm going to break in the middle for some Q&A. If you have questions and just want to get it into the chat and make sure you don't forget it, you're welcome to do that. But I will keep all the teaching together and congruent, then stop for questions, and then continue on, and we'll do hopefully some questions at the end as well. Okay, so now that all of the housekeeping is out of the way, I'd like to ask you to open up your chat window. open up your chat and, oh, there we go. I'm going to move that. Open up your chat. I have a question for you. And I just would love to have you answer in just a few words what it is, the answer to this question. So here's the question. The question is, why is this topic important to you? You probably have about 5 other things, at least, that you could be doing right now, but instead you're here. You showed up live, not even for the replay. You're here live. So what is the reason you are here today? Why is messaging important to you and your business? In the chat, 10 words or less. Why is this important to you? All right, let's see. I want to reach more clients because I never feel like I explain what I do as well as possible. We all need to generate clients consistently. Hence our message needs to be able to work magic. I want to be able to reach the right kind of clients. That's a great distinction, Clara. Yes. Attracting more of the right people, same theme. Perfect. All right. Well, good news is you're all in the right place. This is what we're going to cover today. And I'm going to build this content from the ground up for you. And I want to share a little bit of where this comes from, because I think it's important to know that this isn't a theory. This isn't something I read in a book somewhere. This is from years and years of in the trenches experience. So now, yes, I have a training and coaching company. It's about 12 years old, and we're on track for the $500,000 mark in the next couple of years. But my first few years did not look anything like this. I had, when I started this business, I just shut the doors on a business that was killing my soul. It was just awful. And I was just super excited because I'm like, yay, now I'm in alignment with my values. I'm contributing to the prosperity of others. Yay. But I didn't have a plan to get new clients. I was not charging what I was worth. And it's probably no surprise that within a couple of years, I ignored all the signs and headed straight for burnout. I was diagnosed with extreme adrenal exhaustion. And I found myself with only 4 hours of energy a week to run my business. And so what I had to do is I had to figure it out. Was I going to close the doors, or was I going to find a completely new way to work? And as I was trying to decide this, a question popped into my head, and I recommend you write this down. And this is the first thing I'm going to recommend you write down today. The question that popped into my head was, what's working? That was it. What's working? Because I no longer had time or energy to figure out what the social media channels are all doing with their algorithm this week. I didn't have time to try every new marketing trend that came down the pike. I needed to know that whatever I put my very limited energy into, that it would produce results. And so starting with that one question, my business actually started to grow as my health recovered. And then over time, it developed into this bigger client generation system that you see on the screen now. This is what helped me double my business several times over. It's the reason my clients consistently increase their income 50% or more. And it's what I'm going to share today. So let's jump right into that sharing. So we're going to start with when and how to explain what you do. And let's start where you are right now. I'm going to give you just a minute to consider the question, when do you think you should explain what you do? Just get your answer in your head. When should you explain what you do? When should you explain coaching? All right, got your answer? Okay. Now, I want you to reflect upon the last time you brought your car in for repair. When you went to the garage, was your goal to learn how to become an auto mechanic? Probably not. In fact, if the person fixing your car started to explain their tools, the diagnostic, how the hydraulic lift worked, your eyes probably started to glaze over. But when they started talking about it's going to be done at 5 p.m. tomorrow, and you are going to get a loaner car in the meantime, that's when they got your attention. Because the bottom line is you don't care about the method. You care about the outcome. You care about how you're going to be taken care of, right? This applies to explaining coaching too. So many times I see coaches jumping in and explaining coaching right off the bat. And the fact is, your ideal client, generally, for most people, they do not want to do your job. So they don't need to know what coaching is all about right away. They want to know how you can solve their problems. So hold off on explaining coaching, and I will jump into what to do instead in a minute. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with A vocabulary lesson. I know that's just exactly what you showed up for today. Words are so important, and that's what our whole topic today is about. So let's just go through some basics to set the stage. So the first thing is a stranger. Obviously, you know nothing about them. That one's pretty obvious. This is one you may have not thought of before. I call it a suspect. This is someone you suspect could use your services. They have not identified it. You suspect they could use your services. And a prospect is someone who is curious or has self-identified as wanting your services. And then a client is someone who has paid you. So when do you bring in this explanation of what you do? I want you to imagine between the prospect and the client, like there's a middle stage right there. That's where you give a little bit of information about coaching. And it's not about withholding, it's about only giving people what they really need and want in order to move forward with you. If you overwhelm people with the history of coaching, it's not about them, and they just don't need to know it at that point. So here's where it comes in. So a stranger, you would only talk about, you do your introduction. A suspect, you do your introduction, which is all what we're going to work on next, which is all about the ideal client. It's not about you. And a prospect, the thing you want to do with a prospect, someone who says, hey, you know what, Keisha Ann, I really want to know more about your coaching services. I might be interested. What you want to do is not explain coaching. What you want to do is get them on a call to discover what it is they are looking for and whether you're a good fit. And then where you introduce coaching is if you get on that call and it is a good fit and you learn about them and you both decide it's a good thing to move forward with, then you touch on what coaching is. And here's I will read this to you and then I will put it in the chat because it's a great way to very succinctly and without a lot of fuss or embroidery, how to explain coaching. So here's what you can say. Here's what I think you're going to find really exciting. The coaching process is not about loading you up with lots of advice, but rather working with you to dig deep within yourself to discover the answers that are most profoundly true for you. And that is about the extent of what they need to know about coaching. Otherwise, it needs to be all about them. Otherwise, you are going to be overwhelming with people with information, or you can be so afraid to look pushy that you'll just back off too far. So now, it's much more common that coaches are worried about feeling pushy. And that was the case for Jared. This is a great story because you may be able to relate. He came from a background where he had a corporate job. And whenever he had to go out and talk about the consulting and coaching services that this company offered, he didn't have any problem with it because it was someone else. He was promoting someone else. But once it became his own services, his own business, it just created this whole fear about looking pushy. And so he like you probably had the instinct that to not be talking all about himself. He didn't want to be out there going, look at me, I'm so great. If that feels uncomfortable, that's a great gut instinct. That's what Jared felt too, because where you need to be is talking about your ideal client. So for him, this is how it turned out. We found a whole new way to work it. We aligned his messaging with his ideal client instead of all about his background and all about him. It was way more comfortable. And he was able to get some really delightful results in his first 30 days. So now let's jump straight into how to create that magnetic 30-second introduction. So prospects say, I need you quickly. Now, quickly does not mean pushy. It does not mean convincing or persuading. It means you're so clear that someone who you meet, and if they're an ideal client, they're going to immediately say, I need you. And I'll give you why this is so important. If you may have had this experience where you meet someone and they say, what do you do? And you give an explanation. They're like, oh, you seem nice. Okay, let's go to coffee. And so you have a coffee with them, and then you see them at another networking event, and then you go for another virtual coffee, and then you meet at a social somewhere. 6 months down the road, you're chatting with them, and they go, oh, I finally understand what you do. I just hired someone last week for that. Yeah, that hurts. This is why expressing the value of what you do quickly is so important. It's about the speed of business. So just to show you where we are on the map, messaging really kind of weaves through all of these elements, but ultimately we're looking to drive people towards a sales and enrollment conversation, discovery conversation, chemistry call, whatever it is that you call it. So let's start with the goal of the introduction I'm going to teach you here today, because you may have learned other ways to do this. And so here is the goal of ours. The goal is to discover immediately if your ideal client is standing in front of you. Notice this doesn't say make everyone understand what you do or explain coaching and your expertise. And this is important. Again, it's not about pushing, convincing, proving, or persuading. So to achieve this goal, to discover immediately if your ideal client is standing in front of you, your introduction must mirror what your ideal client is thinking and feeling about the problem you can help them solve. So we must start with your ideal client before we move on to the formula for the introduction. So here's where we're going to start. A couple of tips on your ideal client. Your ideal client is someone who wants your top program, product, or service that you offer. Here are a few tips. Number one, your ideal client description never starts with the words, I'd be willing to work with. That's settling. That is settling. So never I'd be willing to work with. And also ideal client descriptions, they don't include your certifications you hold, the methods you use, the assessments, or the school you attended. So here are the questions that need to be answered and in order to do the fill in the blanks introduction. I'm going to ask these questions, and I'm going to recommend you do this in 2 different ways. The first way is what we're going to do right here today, and that is just write down the first answer that comes to mind. Don't overthink it. I know it's challenging. Don't overthink it. Just the first thing that comes to mind. And then outside of this class today, go ahead and take a little bit more time, dig a little bit deeper. But for the purposes of our time today, just whatever comes to mind first, that's the place to start. So here are the questions you're going to answer right now. First, who do you work with? Who do you work with? Doctors, business owners, female professionals, very generic, general description. We're going to get specific as we go along. Very general description. Who do you work with? Second, how do they feel right now? They're dealing with something. They're grappling with an issue of some sort. They're looking for some kind of outcome. How are they feeling about it? Are they frustrated? Are they overwhelmed? Are they excited? Are they sad? How are they feeling? Are they feeling under pressure? And what is the main problem that they're dealing with? What is the main problem they're dealing with? And by the way, this isn't about being negative. This isn't about, quote unquote, like pushing the pain point. This is about meeting them where they are right in the moment. So they recognize that you can help them. So what is their main problem? 4, what service solution or outcome do they want? What service solution or outcome do they want? It usually sounds like I need a plan, or I want to lose weight, or I just need more time in the day. Very surface, probably something they'd mentioned to the checkout person at the grocery. Just very surface outcome do they want? And then the last one is when they achieve that surface solution, what is it that they really want? Do they want to feel more present with their family? Do they want career advancement? Do they want significantly better health, more energy? What is the deeper solution or outcome that they want? And then we take these questions, the answers to these questions, and we fill in the blanks. I'm hired by blank, who are blank with blank, and who want blank so they can blank. So I know this is very clear at this point. I do have some examples for you. It will help flesh it out. And then I'm going to take a chunk of time to sit with you and answer questions, take some of the things you've come up with and workshop it with you a little bit. So here are some examples to kick us off. So I'm an executive leadership coach. That is very bland. It leaves a lot of room for interpretation or confusion. It's like just glossing over, making what you do very beige, boring, and blends into the woodwork. So how about this instead? I'm hired by newly promoted first-time managers who are feeling in over their heads with their new management role. And they want to create a high-performing team so they can fast-track their next promotion. The fact is, if this newly promoted first-time manager was standing in front of an executive coach, an executive leadership coach, and that coach introduced themselves as an executive leadership coach, that first-time manager could very easily just walk away because they wouldn't know. They wouldn't know that that is someone who would serve them at a high level. All right, let's take another example. I'm a bookkeeper. In the past, I worked with more than just coaches. Now I focus on coaches, but this one was so good, I had to include it. So I'm a bookkeeper. If you really want someone to fall asleep, tell them you're a bookkeeper. Instead, let's say I'm hired by businesses that are overwhelmed with having gone through a growth spurt and who want someone else to handle the details that are falling through the cracks so they can focus on taking their business to the next level. This is an actual example from one of my clients, and in 30 days after he started using this introduction, his referrals doubled. A lot of people think when you get specific, you are eliminating people. Generally, that is not the case. All right, last but not least, I am a business coach. I'm hired by business owners who are frustrated with client generation and who want to significantly grow their business so they can stop working nights and weekends. So I hope you can hear the difference here. It is all about painting that crystal clear picture of your ideal client. All right, so now let's jump. I want to take a few minutes to see what questions you have, or for a brave soul, if you've done your first draft of this and would love some feedback. So what questions do you have?
You can just unmute yourself, right? And
yes, yeah, please
unmute.
Down. Yeah, way better than trying to go back and forth on chat with this. I'd love to see that you're doing your homework in class.
Someone who's going to be brave and share what they've written down.
Yeah.
Lucky, yes, we've got an expert here.
Yeah, Clara.
Hi. Yeah, nice to meet you. I just wondered about the main problem they're dealing with. What if it's multiple problems? Like, what if, yeah, how do you choose which problem to focus on?
Okay, great question. And can you give me some examples of some of the problems you're thinking of?
So I am an executive coach and I need to rebrand that, I know. But it could be that they are, they've just been promoted, but also they've got challenging people within their team. Or like, I find that it's never just one thing.
Yes.
So like, it'd be great to just know what I should be focusing on.
Yeah. So this is, especially for executive coaches, this is the question. It's like, where do I focus? So a couple of things. Some people find that the majority of their clients have an issue around team. And so mentioning it, there's some people issues cropping up with the team, or everyone on the team isn't pulling in the same direction. So that's one thing. The other thing is getting to the emotion that is kind of like an umbrella over everything. And for executive coaching, a lot of times it's that your clients are all under extreme pressure to perform under constantly changing conditions. And that is interpretable in a lot of different ways. Like one person may be experiencing that because they've just been bought. Maybe they've just been promoted. Maybe they have a team that's underperforming. It can be interpreted in a lot of different ways, but the feeling of being under pressure They're like, yeah, that's me. I feel under pressure. And what I really want to be is successful. I want to be advancing. I want to, so that it's getting to that more, it's weird because you have to be like very general and very specific.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's really helpful, actually. I hadn't thought of focusing on the an emotion rather than like the specific
Situation.
Yeah, that's really helpful because they are all under pressure. So yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm working with another executive coach right now, and he is fighting me on this. He keeps making his introductions so bland, and I'm like, oh, okay, you're grown up. You could go do what you need to do. But thank you for asking the question, because one bigger principle that I can bring forward here is that what you're looking to do is create almost like I think of it as a magic mirror. Okay, so you're holding it up and saying, is this you? And unless you have a very, very specific niche or specialty, making it broad enough so people can interpret what you're saying to their own situation. So like for what I do, I say, my clients, they want to grow their business without working nights and weekends. Well, that sure leaves it open to interpretation, but nobody I work with, nobody who hires me wants to work all the time or have their business not make money. So, but everyone may want to do it differently, but I've left it very open for interpretation. So a lot of people could see themselves.
Sorry, can I ask another question? It's probably a smaller one, just a quick one. On, the section where you say I'm hired by, like the whole kind of what we've just gone through, do you recommend using that on a website, or like, is that something we just keep to ourselves?
No, I usually think of it as just a something you use when you're talking to people or introducing yourself at a networking group. But the principles behind it all is the problem and the two solutions basically become the foundation for all of your messaging. So for instance, I think of messaging as having, like, the best way to do it is to keep it very, very, you want to keep it very unified. And you do that by coming up with 3 core characteristics or 3 core concepts that apply to your ideal clients. And then you can just express those concepts in different ways. So for instance, one of mine is time freedom. Everybody who I work with, they want a certain degree of time freedom. So I can express that as don't work nights and weekends, leverage your time, be productive instead of just busy. There are a lot of different ways to express the concepts.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful.
You're welcome. Wonderful. Okay. Who else? Go on, Keisha Ann, I know. Or Paula beat you to it. Go ahead, Paula.
Would I just read mine out and see what it sounds like? Please. Okay. I'm hired by women aged 25 to 35 who are frustrated and overwhelmed by life, struggling with low confidence, and who want to find freedom so they can live happy, fulfilling lives.
Okay. Thank you for that. And first of all, just putting it out there, because I know it is like, this is vulnerable. So thank you. So one thing I would recommend is you mentioned the demographic of the age. That's usually not necessary in an introduction, where you address that's your target market rather than your ideal client. And you address the target market with where you show up. So I think of client generation, it's got 3 big things. It's what to do, where to go, and what to say. Where to go, what to do, and what to say. We're covering what to say. The 25 to 35, that you want to navigate by understanding where to go to find those people. Yeah, but because it's a little awkward to stand up in like, let's say you're at a networking group and say, I'm hired by women 25 to 35, and everyone's like sorting themselves out. It's just a little odd. So I guess the question for me is, are you willing to work with people if they are frustrated, feeling stuck, if they are 45?
Well, yeah, and I have done. It just seems that those women are the ones that are drawn to me, the younger women, but I've worked with women out of that demographic as well.
Perfect.
So I thought originally because I've been trying to renew it recently, I was just saying women. I wasn't putting an age on it. I was just saying women.
Yeah. Yeah, I would go with that. And the other thing to consider is that when you are in a public situation, which we get to do again, when you're in a public situation and you're like, hi, I'm Paula, and I'm hired by women who are feeling frustrated and they've got low self-confidence and all of this. I mean, these people are sitting shoulder to shoulder with their peers. They're not going to be like, me, I got low self-confidence. Okay, so you have to consider how you're presenting the problem when you're in public versus like sending an email or on your website where it's private. You can be a little more pointed about it.
Yeah.
So you might consider just saying something like, I'm hired by women who they're frustrated and feeling stuck and they're not sure why. Okay, because just like toning it down a little bit for when you're basically in public. And oh, go ahead. And then the other thing is the second part of it is just falls a little like, it's just a little bland. It just falls like, it sounds a little bit like it doesn't ring true. So like, what is it they can't accomplish right now because they are feeling like they have low self-esteem and they just aren't very confident?
They're not living in the world as they want to. They're not showing up as they want to. And because I did some interviews with people and they all mentioned that they wanted to feel freedom.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's why I wanted to include it in the in the thing that you're talking about, the message. Okay.
And so what you may do is like that really may anchor it at the end. Something like, what they want is to figure out how to fully show up, bringing all their gifts and potential to the table so they can truly live a life of freedom.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. Words are my favorite. This is just my favorite stuff to do. So, and I will not be able to repeat that just because it's like, it'll be on the recording. All right. Okay. All right. One more.
All right, I'll jump in.
There we go.
I definitely think my stuff is quite beige and bland in terms of doing it and quick. So pretty much I work with companies who team members feel stuck and want to achieve results quickly.
Okay. And why are you feeling? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, for me, it varies because if I'm working with a tech company, so my clients have predominantly been in tech, hospitality, or real estate. So depending, I switch it up. So I admit I haven't done this cold in a very long time. Yeah. So I haven't thought about that initial step because I haven't done it cold in a while.
Okay, great. So I'm going to bring up a bigger principle here for everyone's learning benefit and then dive into yours. So if you know the audience you're in front of, if you know when you're in front of a real estate crowd or a tech crowd or whatever, then by all means, tailor what you do. If you are in front of a mixed crowd, and if you don't know who you're standing in front of, don't play psychic. Have one introduction. Have that broad, cold introduction, because you're not psychic. I'm guessing you're not psychic. So don't try to tailor things before you learn about the people in front of you, because the fact is your ideal client doesn't change depending on who is in front of you. It doesn't. So for you, Keisha Ann, you might consider doing something like, first, I'm hired by is stronger, gives more instant credibility than I work with. It's a small tweak, but we take every little advantage possible. So I'm hired by companies who they love their employees. By the way, you don't want to work with anyone who don't love their employees, who love their employees, but their teams just aren't operating at the absolute peak performance. So what they want is to support their teams, get them all pulling in the same direction, so everyone's happy and stays forever. Because retention, by the way, retention is another piece of this. So performance, yes, but retention. Yeah, you're welcome. Great. Okay, so I said at the beginning that the point of all of this is about client generation and lead generation. And what this messaging informs is every word that comes out of your mouth, every word that you write. And two places it shows up in particular is in the top two ways that coaches get clients, the lead generation tactics. So I want to make sure to not leave you hanging. I want to make sure to put a few more resources into your hands so that you can take this information and have application to direct lead generation tactics. So top two ways that coaches get clients are referrals. Majority of clients come through referrals and relationships. And the second way is through speaking, if that's something you want to do. So what I want to put into your hands, if you would like it, is I have two courses. They include email templates, checklists, processes, like the whole thing written out for you. So you don't have to guess, how do I ask for a referral without feeling awkward? How do I build centers of influence? All of those things. If you want to do speaking, it's a huge opportunity. It's a lot of fun. But most people stumble with, how do I get booked? So I have another course called Fill Your Speaking Calendar, and that will show you how I have done this for years, booked hundreds and hundreds of speaking gigs to get clients. If you would like those, here is what you do. Send me an email. We're going to go really low tech here. Send me an email, Mary@marycravets.com. Mary@marycravets.com. And by the way, if you're listening to the replay, oh, sorry, Mary@simplygetclients.com. I said Mary Cravets. That's my old brand. Sorry. Mary@simplygetclients.com. That's a lot easier to spell. And I put it in the chat too. If you're listening to the replay, you are welcome to do this. My team is trained, and put the subject line, smile. Okay. Subject line, smile. That's how we know, because I know more referrals will make you smile. And I'd recommend doing that now. But again, do your homework in class. This is one of my themes for the year. Go ahead and do it now, and that way it won't get lost in a busy day. Oh, those are my gift to you too, by the way. There is not a bill coming after you send me that email. How tacky would that be? All right. Okay. So one last thing about all of the messaging before I go on to the last teaching point, and that is that the key to all of this working is consistency, staying on track and consistent, not getting distracted, not reinventing your message when you don't get results right away, or someone looks at you like, I don't get it. Right? And I know consistency, not super exciting, not super sexy, and we all fall victim to bright, shiny object syndrome sometimes. So I want to give you a question that will help you stay on track. I came up with it when I was working with a client. She's not a coach, but her comment, like the tool we came up with her, was so good that I have to share her with you. So her story was she has a social media firm in Los Angeles. She was a few years into business. And even though she was working like 50, 60 hours a week, she wasn't making income. She wasn't getting clients. And because she's creative, like I am, and maybe like you are, she kept trying new things to grow her business. And unfortunately, instead of growing her business, this constant creation led to more confusion and chaos. Yeah. So what happened for her, we worked together to create a simple plan, including her messaging, supported her to stay focused and on track. And the question I asked her, and this is the tool I want to give to you, the question I would ask her, the question I ask myself, and I encourage you to ask yourself anytime that brilliant new idea comes up and is threatening to derail you. Here's the question. Will this move me towards my goal? or is it perpetuating a pattern of chaos? So is this moving me towards my goal, or is it perpetuating a pattern of chaos? And by the way, if you come up with a great idea, one of the ways to get out of the chaos, it's just say like third quarter, fourth quarter. It's not a no, it's just not a right now, perhaps. So for Margaret, what happened is we worked together for about 6 months. She sent me an email. She said, I just crunched the numbers. Business is up 40%, cut my hours in half. And I love her quote. She said, I finally feel like a business owner rather than an overworked employee. Yes. Okay. Let's jump into this last piece. And this is what I was talking about at the beginning, the bigger picture, because messaging is one piece of the puzzle. But the question is, how do you proactively create more opportunities? Because if you want to grow your business, you've got to have client generation strategies and a plan in place. What I see with a lot of coaches is they learn a little bit here, they learn a little bit there, and it never ends up being this well-oiled machine. And instead, it's just like all these scattered efforts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to equip you with a bigger picture understanding of client generation so you can be proactively attracting more clients and having more consistency and control over your results. So let's get started with a simple assessment to understand where you are right now with your client generation plan, because what I know is that you have some of these things in your business, and there are other things that you don't have, and there are other things that are underperforming. But when you're busy all the time, actually stepping back and assessing, it can be hard to find that time. So that's what we're going to do today, so you know where to focus your efforts in order to get better results. I'm going to define each of these 6 essential elements. I recommend you write them down. Then you will assess how clearly defined they are in your business on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is low and 10 is high. Again, I encourage you not to overthink this. We will start with values and vision on the left here. So when you have your values and vision and your why completely clear, you create a sense of conviction. This gives you the courage to ask to be paid what you're worth. It gives you the willingness to put yourself out there, even if you're risking rejection. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how clear are you about your values, vision, and goals? This evaluation is for you. Do not put it in the chat. It's not necessary. All right. Secondly, pricing and packaging. This one's pretty obvious, but it's important. Is your pricing structured so it honors your expertise and you're owning your value? Is it structured so you're paying yourself decently and not just rolling everything back into the business? So the bottom line question is, are you clear and confident that your pricing is where it needs to be in order to reach your financial goals on a scale of 1 to 10? Next is ideal client. We talked about this. You never describe your ideal client as someone you'd be willing to work with. Got to be clear about who is ideal. And then what you need to know about them is, who are they? What are they thinking? And where can you find them? So on a scale of 1 to 10, how clear are you about your ideal client, who they are, what they're thinking, and where you can find them? Now, we've spent some great time today on messaging already. Messaging is magnetic when it quickly and accurately articulates what your ideal clients want from their perspective, not yours. And when I'm working with my clients on their client generation plan, this is my favorite part of the work. It's a moment I can see the whole business just like that change in an instant. Because here's the thing. Have you ever had that experience where you see someone out in the world? Maybe it's on social media, maybe it's out when you're running around. Have you ever had an experience where you see someone and they are less experienced or less talented or less ethical than you, and they are getting more clients than you? The majority of the time, it's because their messaging is better. So this is the place to focus. If you see that, if you're frustrated about that, this is the place to focus. So how magnetic is your messaging right now on a scale of 1 to 10? Next is lead generation. Lead generation should be, tactically what it should look like is a simple list of 100% controllable activities that you complete each month, where you feel confident that it will bring you results, kind of like a formula. And one of the biggest issues with lead generation is resistance to implementing. So I have a tip for this before you do your assessment. Make sure your lead generation strategies align with your values. For example, one of my top values that me and my clients share is about having a positive impact on the lives of others. So about 30% of my time with clients is spent on their speaking strategy. It naturally aligns with our values, so there's less resistance to implementing, makes attracting new clients much more enjoyable. So as you are assessing this element, consider two things. Are your actions clearly defined? And wherever possible, have you aligned them to be energized by your values? So there's less resistance and more enjoyment. On a scale of 1 to 10, how clear and confident are you in your ability to bring in new leads consistently? And last but not least, can you confidently convert a prospect into a paying client? This means having a sales process in place that removes the guesswork of how do you introduce what you do? How do you get them to see the value? How do you explain but not over-explain so they want to work with you? How do you ask to be paid what you're worth? If you're working with companies, can you get those proposals through all the layers of decision makers? Rate your ability to close the sale once someone says they are interested. So now that you've done this evaluation, what you want to do is a few things. Number one, you want to make sure that anything that is a high number, you want to make sure not to lose focus on that, because the things that are working, sometimes when we're fixing things, we can lose focus on those things that are working. So make sure to continue those things and then start in on attacking the things that need improvement, because anything that is even just underperforming is going to slow your progress. This whole assessment should give you some clarity about what needs attention and where to focus your efforts in order to get better results. And that's really what it's all about. Focus, being intentional with your efforts. So let's take a few minutes to talk about next steps and creating lasting impact. How to get into action. What are you going to do with what you've learned here today so that you are actually seeing results? I have two things for you to do here. The first thing I'm going to recommend you do is write down a bite-sized action. What is one bite-sized action you can take that you discovered here today? Think about which of those 6 areas of client generation need your attention most as a suggested starting point. Okay. Now, did you write down more than one thing? Or does more than 1 or 2 areas of client generation need your attention? Okay, if that's the case, then you have some work ahead of you. And because you have big goals, I get it. So I'm going to add a dash of inspiration to support your efforts right now. I'm going to ask you to put down your pen or take your hands off the keyboard. And I invite you to take a look at the gears on the screen. Take a minute to imagine this. I want you to imagine the number 10, that assessment, 10s across the board, floating above each of the gears. So 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. A vision of your business running at 10s across the board. Take a breath and think about, how would that feel? What would become possible if that was your business? I hope that's a vision you can get behind. You can see the possibilities. All right, this brings us to the second piece of creating lasting impact. And that is, if you don't currently have 10s across the board, you are probably experiencing some stress, wondering and worrying about where your next client is coming from. So my question for you is, what is your plan to get everything to a 10? Then stay focused and on track so that a year from now, you're not wondering and worrying about the exact same things. So, and if you don't have that clear plan, that 10s across the board plan, then would it be helpful to get on a call and talk it through? I'm happy to walk through your current plan as it stands today and look at where the holes are, look at where the blind spots are, and then explore solutions to help you reach your goals faster and with less stress. And this is a complimentary call, but before I give you the link to get on my calendar, I do have 2 criteria to qualify for the call. They're simple qualifications. Number 1 is you've got to be open to receiving straightforward feedback. It's just my style. And number 2, be willing to consider investing in yourself if we both see that working together further will give you that tens across the board plan and keep you on track so you are enrolling new clients consistently. Here is my calendar link. It's just a simple scheduling page, breakthroughcall.biz. I'm going to drop it in the chat as well. And if you're thinking, wow, Mary must be a mind reader, this is exactly the conversation I need, the timing is perfect, but you're jotting it down and saying you'll get around to it later. Again, one last time, I'm going to encourage you to do your homework in class. Do it now so all this clarity and good intention doesn't get lost in the shuffle. And I'm going to leave you with a quote, and then we'll have a few minutes for questions. I mentioned earlier that when I opened this business, I owned a different business. I'd closed the doors on that business, and at the end of the run of that business, my soul was just dying. I was settling for small successes. I was undercharging, undervaluing myself, and I was stuck because the business was paying my bills, and I didn't know what to do next. So one day I dragged myself to a meeting kind of like this, and I was like, I am so done with this, but I just don't know what else to do. And in the middle of that presentation, the speaker said something that made not knowing, it made it irrelevant. At that point, I phased out my clients over the next 3 months. I quit my business and started this one. And because of that leap, I have had the most fun in business I've ever had and the most success. So here's the quote. A major source of unhappiness in the world is people settling for what is passable instead of reaching for what is possible. I hope today that I've not only inspired you to see what else is possible, but also equipped you better to make those possibilities your reality just a little bit sooner. Right. And we have a few more minutes.
Oh, thank you, Mary. I was so busy scribbling. I had to get that last bit of the quote down. And first of all, thank you very much. I mean, I looking at the faces around me, I can see I'm not the only one to have found it very inspiring, very structured, very straightforward, and lots of aha moments where I think, why didn't I think of something? How come you put it all so perfectly that and I feel inspired as well. And I am very guilty of the creative problem, as in recreating 600 ways to do something and not just getting around and taking one to the end. So thank you very much, first of all, for that. Now, do you have questions? Please, we have another few, at least 5 minutes. So please, let's make use of Mary being here. Don't be shy. We're all in this together. We're all trying to make our way to this lead generation. Does anybody have a specific question that you would like to ask Mary? Anyone, anything specific on the messaging or on various of the parts or the exercises that we've been doing?
Yeah, and one quick thing to that I'll put out there is that you're welcome to question any of this to my face, by the way. Any part of this that you're like, yeah, I've heard this before, or that didn't work. I love having that conversation. It isn't threatening or confronting to me. It's refreshing because it means we can actually make some progress. So if there's anything you've heard, you're like, yeah, I've heard that before, or this makes me feel pushy, or this advice sounds wrong for me. Let's have that, bring that question forward. I invite you to do that. Or if you have a non-controversial question, that's also fine.
Yeah. I mean, I know if no one's going to jump in, I mean, I know my problem is still the focus. There are just too many things that I like doing. And even within my target audience, which is 50 plus, and I use that as literally my brand. It's the Fabulous After 50. So I do say I work with women of 50 plus, but then I realize that there are so many things I want to do for my women of 50 plus that I send out hundreds of various messages, but it doesn't have that succinct, you know, and I've got to find a way to make it, I think you worded it beautifully, that it's got to be open enough so that they all feel included, but specific enough that they feel that I'm understanding what they're struggling with, so that they choose me. And I've been scribbling very much here because you've given me a lot of food for thought, and I am going to take action. I've really literally just crossed out in my diary an online thing I was supposed to attend tonight, and I'm going to make sure that I actually take action on that, because that is also what these CPD masterclasses are all about. We can listen in to as many brilliant people as we want to. If we don't take action, if we don't really stop and incubate the really tremendous value you've just created for us and literally put it into action, then it will just stay another inspiring, wonderful, and beautifully presented and lively. And you have a lovely style about yourself as well. But we need to take action. The idea is that we want to be, I mean, that vision of the 10s over, over the board. Just felt so good to not be constantly angry at myself for which parts I feel I haven't really got under control. And we all deserve to have that, and we can all do it with tools like what you offer here.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing to be clear about is this isn't about squelching creativity. It's deciding where to execute it. And so one of my top three values are impact, freedom, and variety. So just like the creatives, the variety piece can really take me into the stratosphere. But it's almost like I had to have a talk with my value of variety and say, let me tell you how I'm going to feed you. I am going to feed you through a variety of experiences with human beings, and not through a variety of experience of marketing. It's like, who cares? The interactions, like I give the same presentation, but it gives me variety by all of what you bring to the table. So sometimes I just have to explain it. It's like, I'm not ignoring it. Just here's your playground. Here's how we get to play together. Otherwise, because if it's like, no, I can't be creative. Oh boy, your values will have none of that. But if you say, you know what, I'm going to have creativity, and I'm going to really dive deep into this offering for the next 3 months. And then I'm going to dive deep into this offering. Or another way, Julie, one thing that occurred to me for you is sometimes I think about a door opener. Like, I'm going to talk mainly about this. This is the door opener to all the other brilliant creativity I offer to the world. Because I know ages ago, I worked with a terrible client in my old business, and he was an insurance person, realtor, reverse mortgage, blah, 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 all the just all the things. And I said, you know what, dude, you're confusing people, because every day he wanted to send out this email informing people about another service, and people don't care. And I said, let's look at a door opener. If you talk about people's insurance, you can get to all the other things. And he was like, no.
Yeah. No, indeed. So it's not the sort of shutting the doors, because that's what I tend to say. If I choose one, doesn't it mean then that I'm shutting the door to all those other hundreds of things where I could be of service? No. It's not. It's actually choosing the main door, and from there it can open up onto the rest. That's a very nice picture. Thank you for that. I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to share a last little thought? Keisha,
I was just going to say thank you very much, because I've been distracted by other things and other exciting things happening. And so this has just helped me reaffirm that coaching is where I want to focus 100%, because it's been ticking along quite nicely for the last couple of years. So I've gone ahead and booked. So I look forward to seeing you.
Wonderful.
So thank you. Thank you very much.
Yesterday, I was scrambling. I'm like, oh my gosh, look at what time of day these calls are. It's 11 p.m. for them in the UK. So I had to put a whole new slew of morning appointments so that you weren't up till midnight just to talk to me.
Well, Thank you. Thank you very, very much. And for the rest of us, let's see this as a call to action, that we do actually, you know, write it in our CPD pads and take action on it. Mary, thank you very, very much, all the way from California. And good luck to everyone out there, and looking forward to the next one. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.